You know that feeling when you grab a cheap, gaming-ready laptop for a steal, only to find the fans screaming louder than a crowd at a concert and the frame lagging behind every new update? I've been there, and I've also watched friends waste a month of rent on machines that barely ran the games they bought. That hesitation wondering if you're about to repeat the same mistake makes you scan every spec sheet and review thread before you finally click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Acer Nitro 5 I'm looking at today tries to sit in that sweet spot between a budget-friendly price tag and the performance you actually need for modern 1080p gaming. It's an i7-12650H paired with an RTX 4060, 16 GB of RAM, and a 0.5 TB SSD, all wrapped in an Obsidian black chassis. On paper, it looks like a typical mid-range beast, but the real question is how those parts behave once you're in the middle of a raid or grinding a massive open-world map. First off, let's talk about the day-to-day experience. When I booted the machine up and launched a few titles *Fortnite*, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and Elden Ring, the loading times were genuinely fast. The SSD, even though it's not a massive 1 TB, handled game installs without the dreaded "please wait" moments you see on older HDD-based rigs. For a student who needs to switch between coursework, a video editor, and a nightly gaming session, that responsiveness is a real plus. Thermals are where the Nitro series usually earns its reputation, and this model is no different. The dual-fan system with Acer's Cool Boost technology kept the CPU and GPU temperatures in a reasonable range during a 45-minute Cyberpunk 2077 session. You'll still hear the fan spin up when you push the graphics settings higher, but the noise stays below the level that would drown out your game audio. In practical terms, that means you can play with headphones on and still have a clear conversation with teammates, rather than shouting over a whirring turbine. Battery life, however, is a reminder that this is still a gaming laptop, not a tablet. After a full charge, I could get roughly 4 hours of mixed use, some browsing, a bit of video editing, and a short gaming stint. If you're planning to game on the train or in a coffee shop without plugging in, you'll probably want to carry the charger. That's a trade-off most mid-range gamers accept. You get the performance you need, but you sacrifice marathon-style unplugged sessions. Now, who actually benefits from this machine? If you're a college student or a young professional who wants a single device for both work and play, the Nitro 5 hits a lot of marks. The 16 GB of RAM is enough for multitasking. The SSD provides quick access to large files, and the RTX 4060 lets you crank most modern titles to smooth 60 frames per second at 1080p with medium-high settings. It's also a decent choice for aspiring streamers who need a dedicated GPU for encoding but don't want to shell out for a desktop tower. On the flip side, if you're chasing ultra-high refresh rates, 4K gaming, or you need a laptop that barely registers on a plane's weight limit, you might want to look elsewhere. The Nitro's 15.6-inch screen is a solid Full HD panel, but it doesn't offer the 240Hz refresh you see on premium gaming laptops, and the color gamut, while respectable, isn't calibrated for professional photo or video work out of the box. For someone who lives in a tiny apartment and needs a laptop that doubles as a daily commuter, the chassis is a bit on the heavier side, still portable, but you'll feel it in the bag. One practical strength that often goes unnoticed is the connectivity suite. You get 3 USB-A ports, a USB-C that supports display output, HDMI 2.1, and a decent Ethernet jack. That means you can hook up an external monitor for a proper desktop setup without hunting for adapters, and you can tether a wired internet connection for those latency-sensitive online shooters. I found the Wi-Fi 6 module to be reliable enough for streaming at 1080p, though I still prefer plugging in when I'm in a competitive match. A subtle weakness is the keyboard's travel. The Nitro's keys have a decent feel for typing, but they're not as deep as you'd get on a mechanical board. Gamers who rely on rapid key presses might notice a slight lag after long sessions. The backlighting is RGB, which looks cool, but the zones are limited to a single color per zone, so you don't get the full perky customization you might see on higher-priced models. It's not a deal-breaker, just something to be aware of if you're particular about that tactile response. The software side is also worth a mention. Acer's Predator Sense app gives you quick access to fan curves, performance modes, and the aforementioned Cool Boost. It's fairly intuitive, but it does add an extra layer of configuration that some users might find unnecessary. I personally liked